HR people. They are constantly judging everyone. They're evaluating people, they're rating people, and maybe the only good thing that they actually do is that they are looking for data to be able to pay their people better than what they're currently being paid. So there is a little bit of a respite to the kind of audience.
I already like them for the last part.
And I come from the north. And there is an interesting conversation and observation that I have where most politicians in the north are the best actors. While when you look at the trend in the south, the best actors are the politicians. What's your take on this divide?
I think I'd like to make a distinction here. There are actors and there are stars. And actors get into the part, whatever they play, to begin with. And about politicians becoming actors, they are not supposed to. But there is no rule that actors cannot become politicians. But to make it safer, the moment my responsibilities in politics increases, I will relinquish acting, both in a professional field and in a public podium.
Oh, wonderful. And you are the quintessential Mr. Perfectionist, or rather the original Mr. Perfectionist, as we know in this creative world in the country. And we know that you don't shy away from having a few broken bones to get one shot right. In your field, you certainly have to deal with a lot of failure before you get one big success. What's the downside of being a perfectionist?
First thing, when somebody compliments you deep from within and so openly, to refuse it is the downside. The first thing now I'm going to refuse is that I'm a perfectionist. I'm not. That's the general observation that people like to describe people who try for excellence. I don't think anything is perfect, or anything could be perfected by one man or one generation or three. I think we'll all have to strive for excellence. That's good enough to break bones. And it's the excellence that started somewhere. A first man who came to tell the news of war and had a heart attack after a marathon, who became the father of Olympics.
Right.
The Olympic flames came from there. So somebody had to die and not see the fruition of it. He was not a perfectionist. He couldn't finish his marathon. He died. But he finished a job that probably he could have run further distances if he had practiced. Later, somewhere it happened in Africa. And not one, but thousands were doing it easily.
Right.
They say that the Zulus ran a marathon almost every day during wartime. So it is excellence that has brought us where I am. Brando's excellence, Shivaji Saab's excellence, Dilip Kumar Saab's excellence has brought me to this stage of endeavor. It is work in progress. There's nothing that is going to be perfect.
No, terrific. So if not a perfectionist, a person who's always in the pursuit of excellence, how do you make the distinction between a failure which is dictated more by the box office, by the audience, and a failure which is dictated by your own high standards?
It's both. But if you are in a business, be it, why do you say when you started, they say how they can pay their human resource a better price? Itself is that balance. The moment you bring in the word pay into it, commerce steps into the equation. And that happens to us also. So our excellence cannot be done with just passion,
Right.
but with a plan also. So that's what I've been trying to do. But so success means both. Success means Chaplin, success means Brando, success means Spielberg, Kurosawa. They mix the best of art. We want Satyajit Ray to succeed like Manmohan Desai. But it's a bridge that needs about millions of Horatios to guard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, clearly, and I did speak about in the introduction that you did your first film when you were 3 years old. I think that's still, I'm coming to grip with that fact because I've got a little one and was capable of literally nothing at 3 years. You've entertained 5 generations. India in this time has become a superpower. The societies have changed. The technology of both filmmaking and acting has evolved to be very, very different from the time that you essentially started. How have you fought obsolescence and stayed relevant during this time? And this is a pretty long time, which is made of several decades.
When you said I've entertained 5 generations, you're talking about only one receiving end. They have entertained me. What is the biggest entertainment for a child as it grows is applause. That has been constantly coming. It's sometimes, yeah, thank you. Thank you. This wants me to speak more and probably with more meaning. Every time I get this, oh, they like what I'm saying, so I must make it better next time, make sense so that I can get more of this noise out of this audience. So that is inculcated in me as a child, and that comes from the family.
Wow. Wow. Literally.
Because when a child falls down, instead of ouch, they applaud. That's our tradition. Around the world, they make light of it. They make even the hardest part look like it's an achievement, because it is. It's a step forward which didn't go right. So from there onwards, they do it. In my house, probably they overdid it, and I was ready at 3.
You've done very, very diverse roles, not just as an actor, but even in the entire art of filmmaking. You've literally moved from one trade to another, got under the skin to be able to perform and give your best. In this entire passion to deliver your best and really get into the character, how is that you've remained in touch with the original Kamal Haasan?
See, people ask me this question because everybody has an original which is very versatile. You ask anyone here, they always have a dream parallel career going on in their mind. Every one of them. You ask a lawyer, he wants to be a Carnatic singer. Other end of the spectrum. You don't know why. And I know so many IAS officers who want to become actors. But then that life pushed him towards that. And there are certain ambitious people I know, they have 7 vertical dreams parallelly going on. There are people who read many novels at the same time. I'm one of them. I have pyramids atop my head, and I'm staring at space, and then I pull out a book and pick it up from the point where I left it out. And it's only practice. It's no speciality. You're interested in it, and you'll pursue it. And that's what it is. That's how you keep in touch with your reality. Yeah. And that reality itself is so complicated. We try to cut it down to size and limit it. There are many stories about you you raise a bird, an eagle with chickens. I think it's chicken soup for the soul or something. And you raise an eagle with the chicken, it'll forget to fly.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No, beautiful. I'm just going to change gears and try and get a little bit of the personal side to Dr. Kamal Haasan. And you face a lot of criticism. How do you filter criticism? How do you take the best from what you feel is relevant, what's going to make you better, which is actually in your interest?
Actually, one has to become a critic to understand criticism. Because everybody loves to criticize. More important, everybody wants to teach. That's why it turns to criticism. Because everybody has a little cognizance, a little knowledge that he thinks is special because nobody else is doing it. And he wants to pass it on. It is almost like your genetics. You're keen to pass it on to someone. And the most forceful way of passing that idea on is through criticism. First, you broach it by saying what you're doing is wrong. Then what is right? I have a solution. But you must be ready to take back the opposite criticism of why it is wrong. It's a long growing process. Criticism cannot be accepted in the first instance. I was trained to take criticism by kind critics who already knew what I'm talking about. And so they used it to construct me. My guru is my critic.
Yeah, but in the digital world that we're living in with social media, you're actually getting so much of it. You can't switch it off. You can't leave it. It's not a newspaper that you can keep on the side. You can switch off the television. It's constantly going to troll you, like it's in your face. How do you deal with that?
Well, Buddha has a way of how you deal with it. You can switch it off. You can switch the world off. So I don't think it's such a big problem. But the thing is, I was talking about icon bashing. It's a great sport. Everybody likes it. And you have a tool to do it in anonymity. So more lumpen material walks in to do the same old sport in an uglier, decorumless fashion. There's no decorum in doing what is an old sport, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even writers, they have that trawl within vitriol in their speech. When somebody like Oscar Wilde, sitting with a group of writers, found something very interesting coming out of another writer, he said, I wish I had said that. And somebody said, you will, Oscar, you will. Yeah. So that's a trawl.
Yeah. And Dr. Haasan, it gets a little complicated as a politician because now you've got slightly more polarized view, right? So there are people who would love your ideology and there would people who would go a little beyond just critiquing your ideology. Going forward, what's your view on how you accept it to actually get encouraged and improve as opposed to get discouraged?
We have great examples. You can go 2,000 years back or just come 20 years back, find a man, you want to find a person like Amartya Sen or go back a little further. It doesn't matter. You can't say, how can you equate Amartya Sen and Gandhiji? You can. They are of the same species, different qualities. But they have the tenacity of purpose to take on criticism, and give criticism boldly and not violently. That is the thing. This world is not going to be united or won over by war anymore. It's an old-fashioned business. It will have to die. It will not have the longevity of agriculture. or education. At least that's what we should all wish for.
You know, I definitely want to survive, and if I have to survive, I have to at least get 2 questions from the audience. Otherwise, just managing this mob is going to be impossible for me. So, 2 questions, ladies and gentlemen. So, we got to be short and precise. That, by the way, is a mic.
Dr. Kamal Hassan, I never dreamt in my life that I will be asking a question directly to you. Having grown up seeing all your movies, yeah, if we draw a parlance, you know, having seen all your movies in the way you have come up, you know, you're on the creative, you know, you're very creative. You have taken risks. You've done so many things and achieved. Whereas now, in the industry parlance, we say that, you know, you're a kind of a technical expert. You know what you're doing. You know, a technical leader or something like that. But we never see a technical leader as a line manager. That means the line manager is more of playing politics and, you know, being clever.
Can you keep the mic closer?
Yeah. You know, a technical expert leads by content. That means he knows what he is leading and all that. So we can compare you like that. You know, you're an expert, you're being creative. You know, you're on that side of the thing. Now, when you say you're becoming a politician, which at least unfortunately in India, you know, is like being clever and, you know, like playing games and all that. So we are not able to match because you're such a creative and personality, and so we are not able to see this. I mean, what is your view on that?
Okay, let me reintroduce myself. Many months ago, I first entered in a college register as what is your goal in life or profession or occupation? And I said, neo-polity-culturist. That's what I want to be. That's what I want you all to be. We have to change. நீங்க தமிழ் படம்லாம் பார்த்துருப்பீங்கிறதுனால சொல்றேன், இந்த அரசியல் மாண்பை, இழந்த மாண்பை மீட்டெடுக்க வேண்டும். The decorum and the glory of our polity has to be regained. That is why I call myself a neo-polity-culturist, to bring the culture of politics back. We are now having Caesars walking through their lupericals without an advisor whispering in his ears in Latin, remember you're a mortal. It used to happen in those times when Caesars returned without their armies in chariots, petals flying at them, and the whole city welcoming him as the savior. An older person sits in the chariot shouting loudly so that only he can hear, but remember, you're a mortal. That culture has to be brought back, where we must think of a future which will extend beyond us. A party will reflect it. Gandhiji's statement when he said, now work of Congress is over, you can dissolve it and reform it into anything you want. The purpose-driven vehicle was what he thought Congress was. But he didn't say that, it was not with malice that he was saying shut it down. He said that it has to be reframed, rediscovered, to suit the requirement of the nation. This dynastic politics or not finding the successor itself is equally wrong. That's what is happening to Tamil Nadu. The continuation was never thought of. There's nothing which is constant as change, and we foolishly seek permanency with mortal bodies.
Good evening,
yes,
sir.
ma'am.
Good evening. This moment is actually a dream come true for me personally. And I believe it's the same for a lot of us here. So thank you very much for taking the time out.
My pleasure, ma'am.
My question for you, sir, the kind of roles you have played from the age of 3 until now is something which no ordinary man can ever imagine. And with that has come tons of experience. So my question is, what is the biggest lesson life has taught you, sir?
I don't settle for the biggest. Because the next moment tells me the comparative size of what I thought was big and what is bigger. And that is why, ma'am, I am in politics. Otherwise, I would have been an actor.
Thank you. I'm really sorry I have to apologize, but maybe let me ask the question that the lady asked in a slightly different manner. If today, Dr. Hassan, you were to meet your 21-year-old self, what would be that one advice that you would give to that young, rearing, aspiring Indian?
Well, see, as I told you, I have a counter perspective. Probably comes from being a cinema technician. You have a counter angle for everything. You think of a story in that way. If you show an actor's face, you want to keep the camera here once and here once, because we are keen on knowing the other reaction. Probably the extension of that, the 21-year-old has already advised the 63-year-old, and the 63-year-old was lethargic, slow, and has taken his advice so late that he's in politics at 63. So all I will have to offer the 21-year-old is an apology, not an advice.
Thank you. Well said. Really, my last question to close the session. I know that your time is extremely precious and you've got other commitments. And, this is an HR audience that grapples with a huge number of very disengaged employees in their organizations. And the biggest angst is on the work-life balance. They just make them work too hard. And employees feel that they're pretty upset about burning the midnight oil. What's your mantra on work-life balance? People like Sadhguru have spoken about it recently. We certainly want to benefit from your...
my dream is to make your work harder. We're going to send you more people. At least Makkal Needhi Mayam is going to get you so much human resource for you to employ. It's a promise we want to give to the youth, and it's a promise that I want you to stand by with us. More people are coming, your job is going to become more difficult. So I'm very sure you're all capable of handling that and more. So with trust in you, we are going to send you more people, human resource. Okay, that's the last question. I'll take it.
Yes.
Give him a mic.
Check. Okay. So we always see in the movies that you foresee things. You foresee things. So when you got into politics, because people like us, we really wanted to see the better place, better India and all of it. Where do you see politics going? In your dream, in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, how the politics will be done?
நீங்க தமிழ் தானே?
Tamil தான் sir.
நாளை நமதேன்னு ஒரு பாட்டு எழுதியிருக்கோம். Let's hope all that I dreamed in that song comes true. Half of it வந்தாலே போதுங்க. I just foresee, okay, let's make it very clear. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. The constitution is of India is very robust. And it's enough if you follow the rules. I need not reinvent the wheel and dream of new dreams. For example, let me tell you how angry I am with the Lok Ayuktha bill passed in our assembly. That's a sham. That's an insult on what we think and what we perceive. The noble idea is rubbed down to the ground by avaricious politicians who are trying to cover the back. It's a cowardly act, and that has to be recrafted, re-signed again. Lok Ayuktha bill is your only hope. When a skeptical man asks, why would an artist and a technician want to go there? That question will not come if every politician is willing to put his pen onto the paper and sign the Lok Ayuktha bill as it is. Thank you.
You know, I'm sorry we have to close the conversation, but I can tell you, Dr. Hassan, we are even more excited to see the next 20 plus.
My little life has taught me, and it may not be useful, but let's get into conversation. That's more interesting to me. To reflect on the reality of future is something that we all need to train to. We keep training for that. We train our children for that. When we tell a coquettish child, woman, man, whoever it is who talks below his age, we say, grow up. The reason is the child, the woman, has, in the hurry of, in pursuit of life, has forgotten to reflect her image of the future and has stayed behind. And that's where our training starts. And we continue growing with whatever education that we sort of collect, intramural or extramural. It all helps us cognize and recognize ourselves. And I'm nothing different. I'm nothing special like all of you. I've been taught this a little earlier. Even before I read Edward de Bono, there was a man in the house in a village called Paramakudi who told me there should always be a third option for everything. You cannot live a life with yes and no. Negatives and positives are not the only approach to life. If there is no third option, invent it. And that's what I was taught. And I don't know whether it was a fact to pursue, it is even practical to pursue it, but I believed it. And in a fumbling way, like a toddler, I have found my path. I have, from walking on all fours, have dared to stand up and become a biped and walk my path, however short it is, or however unmapped or unplanned it is. Today, they gave me introductions that warmed my heart when they spoke of various stages of life. I don't call them talents that I've acquired. These are situations I've thrown in with fantastic masters tutoring me to go forth in that part they thought I would excel in. It was not my idea, believe me. I never thought, I'm a reluctant actor. And this is not stage false humility that makes me say this. This was a fact. I wanted to first be only a dancer. And then I found that classical dancing has limited engagements. I wanted a larger audience. My appetite was too much, as all teenagers have. I had a large appetite for applause and fame. And I thought that I'm stuck in a very small theater if I choose only classical art. So I was looking for a versatile medium which could take me to the world, and cinema was that versatile medium. It's a very versatile medium which encompasses all kinds of arts and offers a podium for exhibition from Jackie Chan to Gene Kelly to all of those great talents, to Brando, to Kurosawa, to Hitchcock, the plethora of talent that it can market and showcase was fantastic, and so naturally I was drawn to it. But those are the stages I went through. It's like going from class A to class 12 or UKG to class 12. These are not my achievements. These were necessities that propelled me forward in a career. Now, I humbly ask you to accept me, not honor me, but accept me in my new role. I am a politician. I was the same person who about 40 years back thought it was infra-dig to even rub shoulders with them. The shoulders that I would have liked to rub were all under the ground or ashes. That's what I thought. Because I was looking for great leaders like Gandhi and Ambedkar in the parliament, ambitious parliament well. In that well, you'll find old frogs, I realized. And then I just started looking around this 1.3 billion that we spoke about now. And it's very easy to find, if you want a Mahatma, they're there. Faceless, without a calling card, waiting to serve the country. And if you think that we lack the earnestness and the honesty, we are all wrong. It exists. And I realized that. And instead of seeking for them, I said, can I find a shortcut? With all the flaws, can I find a man who I could call on any lie openly? And I found myself. I've decided to call on my lies, say sorry, say thank you openly. And that's when I decided to become a politician. I have taken a very dangerous step. But honesty may not be the best policy, but it's a luxury that very few can afford. And I've decided to afford it, sir. This is all I had to go forward to become a politician. Yes, I can give you long rhetorics about what's ailing the country. You know better from your department. I can speak from my cinema circle alone. We have a litany of woes that I could talk to you about. But those are also the reasons. Or if you want to bring in a magical, ethereal quality to what I'm saying as to why I became a politician, I can say it's my calling. Something happened. It's happening to all of us. We were not listening. I was in a fortunate position somewhere. The airwaves brought me the correct news. I read the correct news, read the correct tweet at the right time, and here I am. And I want you all to join me, not necessarily in my party, but this endeavor. Stop playing armchair politics and walk into it. And there's nothing dirty about it when you come into it. This is my request. When people like you walk into it, it will refuse to stay. It will be a river of conscience flowing across the dirt that will wash it away. Yes, there is a momentary shuddering of what we are going towards, but someone has to do it. Remember the Japanese recently who walked into to clean a nuclear facility, knowing fully well what will happen. That's the kind of heroes that India needs now. That is why at 63, I decided to step in. This is not ambition. This is not sacrifice. This is my duty. It's a vision that I may not live to see, but our children will, and they must. If an eccentric rich man's son did not decide to stop his barrister practice and come to help the country, we would still be under British rule. And if another lawyer, another IAS officer, like Mr. Bose or Mr. Ambedkar, they did not decide to do the similar sacrifice. I'm not putting the onus of this freedom only on one man. It was done by so many people, and we have not yet returned that favor. And we've taken and finished off the snacks that we were given in the name of freedom. And we are now sitting looking at an empty plate with no responsibility. This is my feeling, sir. You can contradict me. I did not come into this with any surveys or purveys. I came to it personally, emotionally, and with a vision. And I'm open to speaking to people and forums like this to navigate me to the right direction. You have a duty. If you become skeptical or keep me at an arm's length, you're doing the state a disservice. Don't. Help me. Help ourselves. I must tell you where it started, just so that there are people here who don't know, who come from other countries. My angst for this place started about 37 years back, when we have a strange culture here of fans club. The fuller version is fanaticism for an actor, for an artist. That becomes a fan club. And these people were there, and they were political ones, because actors found that they were useful human resource to turn to politics. But I thought if I'm not keen on politics and only interested in the nation, not electoral politics at least. I'm a great fan of Gandhi, and nobody taught me that. I started as a strong critic of Mr. Gandhi and became his fan. This progress was natural, and like all teenagers, I liked bashing icons. It's a great sport. And that's what I was doing, and I found my icon. So I converted all my fan clubs into social service organizations. So they, after 40 years, 37 years, are now turning into political cadre in the party. So we start with an inbuilt 7 or 8 lakh people already there functioning as social workers. And that's all you need to be. Politics is not another specialty where you have to know cunningness. In addition, that's how I came into this. And M&M, the party, is a centrist party. Some people here ask, what is centrism? Non-committal, neither to the left nor to the right. It's not so. Centrism is rising around the world now. And you all know who are the centrists who are rising and already in power in Europe. And we are probably the only party in Asia. If you look into the Wikipedia, you'll find us there. And we're proud to be there. We have chosen a path which we think is the path for this moment. And centrism is a natural choice of the common man. Be it Buddha, be it Adi Shankara, be it Gandhiji, or even our 2 eyes. Close one eye and look at your finger, placing it on one side. it looks to the extreme. Use both your bicameral vision and you spot the actual position. That's our inbuilt GPS. And centrism is like that in politics, according to us, to put it in a very pedestrian manner. And that's what we represent, and we are coming out with a manifesto very soon. Change has a purpose. Change is driven not only by technicians, technologies, but by the common man. Without his help, nothing will move forward, but he is more ready than an experimenting scientist. I've heard many people say, we don't need another car, an ambassador will do. These roads, why do we need a better car? Why do we need a faster engine? Why do we need bigger roads? Let's go in boulevards and regress back. But it is the villager who facilitated the cell phone revolution. Everybody started picking up the phone. And that's where I think the strength of India still lies. And when you sort of teach him technology, he won't ask questions. He looks at the purpose and he'll quickly grab the opportunity. And that's where Makkal Neethi Mayam is walking. We are dreaming of smart villages. The travel from the village urban area to the metropolis will be reversed. They will come only out of need to the city and prefer to go back to the comforts of their village than the congestion of the metropolis. It is going to happen around the world, and we want Tamil Nadu to be the forerunner of it. These are dreams. But if you don't start with a dream, like our past president said, a dream that keeps you awake, then you can't make it actually happen in reality. I can go on and expound about Makkal Neethi Mayam. That's work to be done. But here I'm more eager to have the conversation with you, and you can drive the rest of my speech. Thank you.